Hello, with me today, nobody else than Ramesh. Thank you for being here, Ramesh.
Yeah, my pleasure, Arne.
Well, yeah, I am absolutely excited to talk with you, of course, because you have the chess coach kind of in your blood flowing all the time, nonstop. You are like almost like the sign of a chess coach. Now, let me ask with a very maybe simple but also difficult to answer question. Why do you love coaching so much?
Yeah, there are many reasons I would like to say. One is when I was a player, I realized I had no clue about my approach, whether I was doing the right things or not, and it was all trial and error. And I really wish there was someone whom I could reach out to when I was not clear on a major issue that was bothering me, and there was simply no one to reach out to. And back then in India, we did not have chess literature as well, access to chess literature. And this is, we are talking about pre-computer era as well. So the right information was really scarce. And when I realized, like with proper guidance, I could have done probably better as a player. And I was also realizing most of the players around me were in the same boat like me. They were also looking for guidance, and when I got an opportunity to work with some players and they produced good results, I realized I can make some difference in a few players' chess career. So that's how I came into chess training, and since then I've tried different approaches to see how chess training can be made more effective from the player's perspective. So can we help in their learning process, make it more efficient, and as a consequence, make it more rapid as well. And I believe I've been reasonably successful in that.
Nice. When we're talking about, and it would be great if you can give a little bit of insight about this, uh, training methods. What are your training or coaching methods in particular?
First thing is like how I see the growth of a player is like probably we have had this discussion before once. It's like I see the journey of a player as like a small plant trying to become a tree. So the small plant by itself is not very strong as of now, but eventually it can, when it becomes a tree, it's going to be incredibly strong, and it can stand on its own against whatever is thrown against it. So in that sense, an upcoming player, I believe, needs to have certain qualities which can aid in the process of learning. Uh, so we can actually teach a player to learn effectively. So the first thing, a few things I notice is this fear of losing games, the fear of failure. This is kind of very scary prospect for most players, and uh, they they kind of fear losing games before it happens, and when they are playing games, they fear about losing this game, and after a loss has happened, how they react, that also is vital, because I have seen many players lose confidence after a loss. Disappointment I can understand, being sad I can understand, but the next phase is very dangerous, where you stop trusting yourself, your decision making skills, and some children can even go to the extreme. They believe like, maybe I'm not a good player, maybe I don't have a future with chess, and that is one of the reasons why we have a lot of attrition happening in chess. uh, so I strongly believe, like before we even approach the technicalities of the game, we have to uh, make the player familiar with these issues. That there are going to be losses, there are going to be disappointing moments. That does not mean they cannot become good, or that is not a judgment on them that they are weak. It's just that they have not learned some aspects of the game as well, and it is possible to learn them with proper work ethics. So once we lay down this process, then when disappointments happen, the player is kind of mentally ready, and they are not going to take it too personally and start doubting themselves. And rather, they would invest their time in becoming better in areas where they made the mistakes which led to that loss. So I strongly believe in combining chess psychology with training. And there is another important aspect. Most of the players, they believe they belong to one category or the other, like I'm a positional player or an attacking player. So once they categorize themselves, it's very difficult for them to learn the other side of the game, which they are not very comfortable with. And once you avoid a major area uh, for very long time, they can eventually become weak in those areas, and that can hamper their growth. So this is another thing I like to emphasize on, that everything in chess can be learned and should be learned over a period of time.
If you can give, I know it might be impossible, but if you can give one greatest advice for every chess player, what would that be?
I think that will be trying to make it too simplistic. I don't think there is one secret pill for success, but if there is one aspect I would like to emphasize on, it is we should deserve success rather than just dream about it or feel entitled to. So we have to deserve success through our chess growth. We become strong, and we become deserving of success, which we are dreaming about.
Wonderful. How do you train, or how would you supposedly teach tactics?
Well, first thing is like before I try to teach any concept, I lay down the principles, the main theoretical information about that topic. In the case of tactics, let's say, so there are two aspects. One is the puzzles. It's a process of solving puzzles is a process by which you are trying to improve your tactical vision. By tactics, I mean the ability to sacrifice. Now, there are players who are quite comfortable sacrificing material, playing with material imbalance for even a long-term compensation or an attack or initiative or quick development for various reasons. But there are many who don't feel comfortable playing with material imbalance position. They would feel very comfortable when the material is equal. So for such players, I believe working on the tactical understanding, tactical vision is extremely important, because for them this would appear like an unnecessary risk that can be avoided. Sacrificing material for unclear compensation, for not clear outcome. So especially for such players, I believe working on tactics is extremely important. So this is the kind of explanation I give to my students. Like if you feel not comfortable playing with material imbalance, it makes a lot of sense for you to get familiar with it at the earliest possible before you start believing in this concept too firmly, and then it becomes very tough to change later on. Once they firmly believe like I am not good playing with material imbalance, it's very difficult to change them. So before such a firm conviction happens in their mind, it's better to introduce them to taking risk, this concept of taking risk by sacrificing material.
What are your thoughts about teaching with engines, and how would you recommend to use the engine the best way possible?
Okay, from a trainer's point perspective, it makes a lot of sense to take the help of the engines, because we can make tactical mistakes in our material, and when we present it to the students, and if you have not checked them thoroughly and then they expose those shortcomings, it will be quite embarrassing, and also the students could lose trust in the teaching skills of the trainer, so they won't believe like the moves I'm suggesting are good. So from and also like engines help a trainer to identify very important moments, very instructive moments very quickly and without any mistakes. So this can be used for training. But from a player's perspective, we need to use engines with caution, I would say, especially at the probably pre-2000 levels rating. So when the players are have not yet reached 2000 or 2200 level, they have more problems in their fundamental understanding of the game, the basic principles of chess. They have not fully grasped a good understanding of the basic principles. So before they understand the value of basic principles, they start focusing on playing a flawless game with the help of engine. It's not going to work. So it will rather shift their attention away from focusing on the principles to playing blunderless or mistake without playing chess without mistakes, which is not going to happen until they learn good grasping of the fundamental principles. So till they are around the 20,000, 2,000 or 2,200 level, I would recommend the players not to rely too much on working with engines, rather than try to teach themselves how to think, how to concentrate, how to analyze. So get these basics in place, and when they feel reasonably good about their analytical skills, about their concentration, then it makes sense to take the help of engines.
What are your thoughts about online chess? In particular, I want to mention Bullet and Blitz chess, which the young generation is kind of growing up to. Do you say, like, yes, of course, the more games you play, the better you can get? Or would you say, like, well, this can actually harm you?
I wouldn't want to take either of the extreme positions. Rather, I have a different perspective on this. One, chess should be fun. It should not be like all work, no play. So chess should be fun. So from that perspective, playing blitz makes a player incredibly happy. All the thrill, excitement, the adrenaline pumping, and the intellectual battle with your opponent. All this is very stimulating and in many ways very positive. It makes you very competitive. So from that perspective, I would recommend not to discourage playing blitz for young children. But the point is like chess is not should not only be fun. It should also the learning should also happen, because if the learning is not going to happen, if the player is not going to get better over a period of time, chess will stop being fun, because you kind of feel like I'm not good at it. And when a individual realizes he's not good at something, he's not going to enjoy doing that activity. So a player, for him to persist playing chess, he needs to know that he is getting better. So from that perspective, improvement is extremely critical, and playing blitz alone is not going to make them a better player. So they need to train themselves on many aspects of the game, like in their opening, middle game, and game. They have to acquire different skills. They have to learn how to attack, how to calculate, how to play positional chess, how to play practical end games, memorize theoretical end games. So there are so many things that they need to learn to become a better player in the long run. So I would suggest a player to have some amount of time for the general improvement, the traditional way of working on chess and improving their skills. That should be a major part of their time they spend on chess. Let's say if a player is spending like 3 hours a day on chess practice, I would say maybe like 2 or 2.5 hours they should devote to proper training on various aspects. And after you have done this, maybe like for half an hour or an hour, they can play blitz. Now, the new element that has become possible because of technology is the ability to play bullet, 1 minute chess. So here we need to be a little more cautious, I would say, because we are after a certain point we are purely relying on luck, the time factor. So even though it gives you all the thrill and excitement of a blitz game, after very few moves, we are purely playing on luck, relying on luck, not on our skills, not on playing a good quality game, which is possible in a blitz game. You can play a reasonably good level of chess even in a blitz game, but in bullet, after a few moves or after a few seconds, it becomes really important. It just becomes a question of who is going to lose on clock. So from that perspective, I would say, given a choice between bullet and blitz, I would recommend more blitz than bullet.
I have one last question for you, also maybe a difficult to answer. Openings, middle games, end games, how would you evaluate the importance of those three factors, if this is possible?
Yeah, it is largely dependent on the strength of the player, current level of the player, and also the motivation. For someone who is on the decline, or someone who is stuck, or someone who is growing, and at what level we are talking about. And generally, I've seen players above 2650 or 2700. They are largely focusing on their opening work, trying to get build a good repertoire, a more practical, effective repertoire. They spend most of their time with chess on opening preparation, which I don't agree with fully, but it makes sense because they have already developed very good analytical skills. They're reasonably strong already, so they can have the luxury of ignoring their middle game, getting better in their middle game and gameplay, and focus more on openings. But for players below 2400 IM level, I would definitely not recommend working too much on their opening skills or broadening their repertoire, so to say. Like if you're an E4 player, you don't have to add D4 when you are still at the level of 2400. Rather, stick to E4. Maybe you can add few varieties. Maybe you can add few sidelines or few main lines. For example, if you're playing open Sicilian H3, 6 H3 against the knight off, and if you have played maybe like 2 or 3 years already and you feel like kind of very repetitive and boring, you can maybe add maybe bishop E2 or bishop E3, something like this. So you can add varieties within E4, and same goes for D4 players. I would not encourage them to learn something very big and new at this level. Probably you can postpone this till you become a GM or 2550 level. So for players below 2400, I would say work more on improving your analytical skills in different situations, not only in situations which you are comfortable and have a liking to. For example, if you're an attacking player, it's not good enough if you're good only in improving your attacking skills and calculation and playing attacking openings. It also makes sense to improve your skills in practical end games, theoretical end games, in positional play, and so on. So become a complete player, become an overall developed chess player, rather than being good at a few areas and not so good in most other areas. So this should be given priority for players below 2400 or 2500, I would say.
Ramesh, thank you for this really, really cool insight. It was, as always, a big, big pleasure. And I know how busy you are, so I'm really grateful that you even took the time to make this happen once again for you at home. Thank you for watching. And yeah, Ramesh, I really hope I can see you soon again in person.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you in person as well. And thank you, ChessBase and Arne, for giving this opportunity.
Our pleasure. Bye-bye.